Welcome to episode 10 and Translated's adventure around the world in the Ocean Globe Race. My name is Paul Cayard. I'm your host. This week I'm in Milan. As you can see behind me, the Duomo. There's not a lot of water here, but I got to do these things wherever I am, and it's nice to be in Milan. I lived here for a few years in the late 80s, so nice homecoming. Marco and Translated and Vittorio are doing really well here on leg 2. They're about 4 days into the leg. We'll take a look at the tracker and see how they got to where they are, which is leading again. And we'll take a look at the router and see what the fleet can expect in the next week. I'm going to look at the first 24 hours of the race, and then we'll look at the bigger picture. But it's always interesting looking at the tactics as the fleet breaks away from a big coastline like South Africa. And originally I was a little skeptical of Translated's tactics, but it turned out that they were right and I was wrong. They made a great start. And this is actually start time, 1400 on the 5th. And the group is obviously bunched. Right here we see that Translated is tacked. This is Translated 9 right here. They are the pinkish boat. They played the shore. The bulk of the fleet went a little bit further to the west. There were basically westerly winds out in this area. At this point I was a little skeptical that Translated was staying a little too close to the high headlands of South Africa, but as time went on, we'll see that they were right, and they came out in the lead here. This is about 12 hours into the race. And right here is when really the westerlies filled in. And as we can see, Translated is leading the pack. So good job to Vittorio and Simon and the gang. Now I've zoomed out a bit so I can bring you up to date with where they are here on Thursday, the 9th of November. This point here is where they were on the 6th. Translated had just taken the lead, as I told you. And it was kind of off to the races at this point because the westerly winds had filled in. This boat out here, Godspeed, we see is still trying to get to Cape Town. Obviously, they had a slow ride down and they'll be leaving in about a week's time. So, but for the rest of the group, things proceeded along pretty smoothly here. Once they hit the westerly winds, they made good progress. Here we see that Pendwick is starting to overtake Translated. And on the outside here is Spirit of Helsinki. Maiden is up on the inside. Pendwick, we know, is a faster boat and it should pass Translated, all things being equal. Again, it'll owe Translated about almost 3 days on this leg, so they have a ways to go. And the group just pretty much proceeded along smoothly here, making good miles all the way to the point where we are today on the 9th. And this is the wind situation. They've sailed through these westerlies. Here we have an interesting little phenomenon, a small ridge or high pressure bubble. This group here might get a little more hung up than looks like Pendwick and Maiden and Translator are skirting around the north side of it. But we'll take a look at the router and see what's in store for them in the next 4 or 5 days coming up. Leg 2 here. Just to orient you a little bit, here's the coast of South Africa up here in the upper left corner and the tracks of the yacht so far. My starting point for this route is Translated's position this morning on Thursday, November 9th. And the ending position is the ice waypoint of the Kerguelen Islands over here. There is also a restricted area at the Croisette Islands, which is in this area here. So my router knows that the boats cannot go in these restricted areas. And interestingly, the routes are all well north of the Croisettes. Now that's something that we know because we can look at the weather. And probably the fleet has a pretty good idea of it because they left Cape Town just 4 days ago. But, they're dealing with a lot less weather information than we are. So let's take a look at what they can expect. So here's Thursday. What's interesting is there's a ridge of high pressure here to the southwest of them. Obviously, you don't want to go in there. And another thing I should explain is that there's multiple color lines here because really my router runs 4 different models: the European model, the British model, the American model, and a couple of predict wind versions of the British or of the European and the GFS. So PWG means predict wind GFS. That's the one that the boat is actually going to follow, the little white boat. So here we are later tonight, and let's move on into Friday, tomorrow, when you guys will be watching this podcast. The GFS wants the boat to stay a little north and catch this strong westerly winds and not get near the ridge at all. But it's all pretty mild sailing here. It looks like on later Friday they might encounter some headwinds. They might be going upwind. But again, 10, 15 knots of wind, nothing too dramatic. Here on Saturday, they've got some northerly winds, so reaching along. And again, everything's pretty mild. Here they might be getting some 20, 25 knots of wind on late Saturday night. Now here's Sunday morning, they're going to get some strong winds. Here's 35 knots of wind from the north. Won't be too cold, luckily. It's coming from the north. Obviously, there's a bit of a low pressure cell just to the south of them here. Just as a comment, these are the things that are dangerous. Like the difference between being here and being here is dramatic, because on this side of the low, you'd be going upwind and very slow. Here, you're going broad reaching and a very high rate of speed. So these are the subtleties in the weather that it's super beneficial to have the maps as we're looking at right now, and they don't have that benefit. So hopefully they all stay north here on Sunday. Moving on into Monday, that low pressure will be passing them, and they'll be in moderating winds, and the winds will swing around to the southwest, which will be much colder temperatures. Again, all the boats will be well north of the Croisettes and the restricted area. Here on Tuesday, the 14th, just a nice broad reaching day, spinnaker up, probably going 10 knots all day. Little chilly, but the wind started to swing around to the west. Remember, it was in the southwest. And here's another little bump of southwesterlies because down here is another low pressure system that's going to roll on through. So all in all, it looks like a pretty good week of sailing, a little bit of breeze midway to the Kerguelen Islands, and my router has them getting to the Kerguelen Islands about a week from now on Thursday the 16th. So that's what the fleet can expect. That's a wrap on episode 10. Again, here from Milan. It's always fun for me to come back to Italy, and obviously it's the hometown or the home country of Translated. And as far as the boat goes, they're doing great. Long way to go. The winds aren't too rough, so they're making good miles, and I'm sure they're enjoying the adventure. And let's remember, we all need to believe in humans.